Good morning, everybody. 5:46 a.m. Thursday, October 12th, 2023. Ask me anything. A lot of great questions out there from both the private Facebook group and the BTWB squad feature. And I think if I have a little bit of hustle, I think I can get through all of them, which will be really cool. So with no further ado, we'll kick this off. Well, a little bit of ado. So where are we? We're just about mid-October. So once again, Rogue Invitational at the end of the month. I will be there. Be working for Rogue on the broadcast side. I'll be there with BTWB as well. If you're part of the Linchpin community and that you're going to be there, then please, find the BTWB tent section area or whatnot. Last year they were in the Rogue tent. I'm not sure where we'll be this year. Could be a great just meeting place, gathering place, and I look forward. I know that we've got members heading there. I look forward to seeing everybody. Have some coffee, some conversation, some laughs, and all that good stuff. And then there was one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, we have one linchpin test remaining to finish out the monthly challenges. It's linchpin test 14. Test 13, which we did last month, was the biggest, most grueling grind of a test that there is. For volume, time domain, it took people anywhere from 1 hour, if you did it extraordinarily fast, to over 2 hours. About 5 miles of running, 210 burpees. We had more people sign up for that. It was our most popular test by far. So people are crazy in a wonderful way. We'll continue to do Linchpin test annually, so that'll stick around. But we have one more left, test 14. Not going to do it in October because there's so much happening in October with the Rogue Invitational as well. So we'll wait and do Linchpin Test 14 in November. And then we'll be done with the tests and we'll figure out something else to do. Okay, let's dive in. Got my coffee and we're good. Rod and Diane Coachman, here we go. Coach, as we continue to repeat workouts over the years, do you ever go back and update the super fitness robot or more likely times? I guess the short answer is very rarely, as it's on an as-needed basis, and the overwhelming majority of the time, I don't have a percentage to give you. They're good to go as is, and in I don't have an example off the top of my head, but I can tell you it's so rare. It's almost so rare that I could say we don't need to update them, but it has happened on a very small number of occasions. So, it doesn't have a metric of 0, but very, very rarely. Okay, Joshua S. Coach, okay, BTWB, CrossFit in general, has established a lot of benchmarks. The BTWB app, there seems like items like max pull-ups, ring dips, etc. In my opinion, it would be fun to make a small event out of some of these once a year or so, just to mix it into a weekend workout or a challenge, or a year to test all of our training days. Thoughts? Joshua, I'm not sure I fully understand your question. Are you thinking max pull-ups, max ring dips, like some max events like that would be a fun challenge? If so, post under the comments here when this video goes up and maybe clarify it a bit. I want to make sure I fully understand what you're saying there. But that could be fun, like max pull-ups, max ring dips, and max kind of things. That could be a good thing to start getting into after we finish test 14 and all that good stuff. Let's see. Adam Murphy, metrics used with BTWB, progress, fitness community, how it's helping the programming. I talked to BTWB and all their amazing data people literally every single solitary day. And to be truthful, the most useful metrics are with regards to loadings that get put up on heavy days, times that get put up on each of the various workout options that we put out, such as prescribed, wildcard, scaled, and seeing if those fall, generally speaking, as to where they should be falling. And that is something which happens, as I said, literally non-stop every day. It's my entire life with BTWB, and in the squad, and in the private Facebook group, and in the leaderboard of BTWB. So that's kind of an ongoing thing that just happens all the time. But there's not like a I don't know, like a special metric that maybe, is a secret behind the scenes metric that you're not aware of. It's the data that you think that it would be. Oh, my daughter's starting to squawk a little bit here. Okay, let's see. Okay, Eric CM. After watching the Blue Zones documentary on Netflix, I became interested in the topic of longevity. How do you visualize fitness for Linchpin members once we become, say, 80 plus years old? I want to put an aspirational picture in my mind and work towards that goal. I've read a bit about the Blue Zones thing, and I've heard it mentioned and chatted a bit about on documentaries, on podcasts, but I haven't watched that particular documentary, so if it's worthwhile, I may have to check it out, but I do know what you're talking about. And it's also interesting, wouldn't that be crazy if, we're still, doing this and having these conversations, and I've got a long gray beard and we're 80 plus years old, and we've got this community that includes young fire breathers in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and then, plenty of people in their golden years as well, and we're all making these various decisions to modify, scale, and march appropriately towards long-term health and fitness. I don't think that's really ever been done, which is, now you're putting an interesting thing in my head. Maybe Linchpin will be the first, forever sort of a thing. Fascinating. Okay, I'm going to have to come back to that. But to get back to your question, without having watched the documentary, okay, I think that the most intelligent thing I've heard said on this topic was said by Mr. Glassman back in the day through many conversations with him, which it was his opinion. Okay, important to say that opinion, theory, hypothesis, not fact, but I think it had decent validity and merit, that as you progressed in years, your workouts in those later years, where we are right now, you hit it hard once a day, even if it's low or moderate intensity, like if you're doing a 21:59 workout or a 20-minute AMRAP or Cindy or whatever, eating clean, sleeping well, that's enough. You don't need any more. Again, optional if you want, but you don't need any more. And his thought was, as you got down the road, moving your body more frequently with less intensity would be a good way to do it. And so, for example, instead of one hard 20-minute session a day for somebody in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, if you're in your 70s, maybe you are doing three 10-minute sessions a day, or 3 12-minute sessions a day, 3 15-minute sessions a day at a lower intensity, where you're basically just moving your body. And that could be a lower intensity session in the morning where you're going up and down stairs, getting yourself on the ground and off the ground. They don't have to be these rapid burpees that your heart rate's going through your chest. You're just practicing these functional movements and still developing and sustaining the musculature needed to do that. Lunging or getting yourself below parallel, carrying things around, still real life stuff, farmer's carries. If you've got, whether it's a light deadlift or a pair of dumbbells or a kettlebell or a bag or something, you pick it up, you put it down, you pick it up, you put it down, there's your deadlift or whatnot, and you break these, move more frequently over the course of the day so that a body in motion stays in motion, and do it at a lower intensity. And that was his kind of sense as to where fitness would be in the later years of life, and that does make sense to me. Quite frankly. And one of those sessions might just be a walk. You might just go out and walk for 15 minutes or something like that. But it's getting yourself up off the couch, because at that stage in life there's a lot of being sedentary, and also just doing things that are quote unquote maybe not workouts, but you're still active. And again, you're hiking, you're biking, you're working in your yard, you're still moving your body, you're gardening, you're doing whatever it happens to be. You're walking to the store if you can, and all of these things are just moving the human body, and that would be profoundly beneficial, since a lot of times at that age, people just park it on the sofa, turn on the couch, continue to eat, and things go downhill rapidly. So I think that's where we're going, and I guess we can all go there together. It'll be pretty cool. Okay, let's see. But I would also, for as long as you can, it's a good idea to, you want to maintain that functional range. Squatting, deadlifting doesn't have to look like a crazy eyeball popping 1 rep max, but you want to maintain those ranges of motion, the ability to do those movements, because you're not looking to go to a powerlifting competition, but when the day comes that you can no longer squat, go from a seated to a standing position, you can no longer pick something up off the ground. Doesn't matter how good your blood work is, you might not be able to live on your own independently because you can't do functional movement, so we've got to maintain that capacity. Okay. Buck, what is your best recommendation for improving, got the coughs this morning, improving mobility in the front rack position? Love cleans and front squats, but I've always struggled with it. I would say, without having you right here directly in front of me, that a lot of times what gets people, or people lack the ability to get their arms up into a good front rack position, is actually their lats. So you might want to really concentrate on trying to loosen up your lats and see if that helps you get into a front squat position. So you can go ahead and just, check out some items to help you break up those lats, hopefully. And I suffer from the same thing. Okay. Neil P. Any regular listeners know that you love ring rows. What are your other top 3 movements that would qualify as effective and not popular? On the flip side, what are the top 3 movements that you would say classify as popular but not so effective? People really liked this question. Could vote it up. So let's see. Put me on the spot here. 3 movements that qualify as effective, not popular. We mentioned ring rows. There's a great one. Strict pull-ups are so effective but not popular. Everybody would rather kip. Running, in both aspects. People don't mind going for a 20-minute jog, because a 20-minute jog doesn't hurt. Jog just means you're going to keep it at a comfortable pace. Now you're going to go jog a 10K, people suddenly have less interest in that, but that has value. And then the other side of the fence, sprinting hard and fast, people have less interest in that as well. So those would be things that fall into the effective but not necessarily popular deal. And things that people love to do but aren't so effective, love to do but aren't so effective. I don't want to say that this is not effective, okay, because that's not true, okay, but I will give you a movement that people are just obsessed with, and they want to see it and they love to see it, and if they don't see it, they're upset. But again, I'm not saying that's not effective, because it is. Kettlebell swing, oh my goodness, people love the kettlebell swing. Just want to do it. How come we're not going to swing a kettlebell this week, or whatever it happens to be? And again, a kettlebell swing is great. It's posterior chain. It takes a sequencing between your mind and your body. There's midline stabilization in there. There's strength building. You get your lungs going on. It's fantastic. There's nothing magical about a kettlebell swing. You can hinge at the hip and replicate that a billion different ways in which we do. But I think the kettlebell swing it also does take skill and technique, obviously, to do. Obviously, I understand that. I've got wonderful friends who are kettlebell instructors, but in the grand scheme of things, a Russian kettlebell swing is not that challenging compared to a power clean or something like that. And so I think people also like it because it's just not that challenging to do in the grand scheme of things. But it is, so I'm not putting it in the popular but not effective deal, but I would say that's, one of those ones where people latch on to a certain movement and they happen to like that movement. And if they don't see that movement, they want to see it. When's it going to come up again? When what they should be worrying about is the gross movement pattern that we're trying to train. And if you think about the gross movement pattern, whether it's squatting or pressing or pulling off the ground or hinging at the hip or whatever it happens to be, I guarantee you we're covering that gross movement pattern because we have almost countless ways to do it. So, okay, let's see. Corey. Embracing the concept of modulating intensity and emphasizing training days for the majority of workouts has clear benefits, as members of the Linchpin community can attest to under your programming and coaching guidance. It's clear that people feel internal and external pressure to go too hard too often, and modulation is such a valuable message. How do you feel about the power of testing days? I fully believe that your philosophy that low and moderate days are critical to long-term health and fitness, but could you shortchange themselves if they never go full send? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Which is why, that message of modulating intensity has 3 parts: low intensity, moderate intensity, and high intensity. You modulate your intensity between those. You just don't modulate between low and moderate. That's not what we're talking about. You do the low days and the moderate days to not just beat the stuffing out of yourself every day, and to actually be ready to bring it and go full send on a high intensity day. So that all 3 have this symbiotic relationship. It's not just high intensity days. I don't think that's a good way to do business. And it's not just low and moderate. I don't think that's a great way to do business either. It's low, moderate, and high intensity days all working together. And so if somebody never goes full send, will they shortchange themselves? Yes, but not catastrophically so. Will you be leaving fitness on the table? Absolutely, you'll be leaving fitness on the table, which is why you should go low, moderate, and high, without a doubt. So the answer is yes, you do want to do that. And that's what we do. And that's also what I discuss every Friday in the modulating intensity video that I post in the private Facebook group and the Linchpin Squads feature. And I discuss over the course of the 5 workouts what's going to be low, what's going to be moderate, and what's going to be high. For me personally, and you have your own plan, but they're all worked in there, and there's not a week that goes by that there's not a session that yep, today is the day that we're going to bring it. And it's usually 2 out of every 5 training days are those sended days. Okay, let's see. Dawn, treadmill running versus running on the ground. Have you ever had anyone track the data, the differences for speed or time, etc., etc.? I admit I like running on a treadmill because I can control the speed and make myself go faster, at least I think. Chris Hinshaw touched on this. I want to say, maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but I want to say he touched on this when Adrian Bosman and I had him on the Very Not Random podcast. I think this was discussed, and I can't remember exactly. I know that he is a fan of both, so to speak, and I think they both have value, whereas on the treadmill, like you said, you can force yourself to stick to a particular pace with incredible accuracy, which you may not be able to do out on the ground. So I don't have the exact answer to your question of what are the precise differences between the two. If somebody can head out on the ground and run on the ground the majority of the time, great. I have an air runner in our garage, which is certainly different as well, self-powered air runner. And I run most of the time on that, even though I prefer running outside, just like you prefer running on the treadmill. I prefer running outside, but running on the air runner, even though it's a little bit different and a little bit more difficult, it just makes my hips and knees feel a little bit better, take a little bit less of an impact, so that's why I lean that way. But I would say if somebody's hips and knees and all that stuff felt good and they had the option between doing all of those, you should without question head out there on the actual real ground and run if you can. Okay, hold on one second here. Let me see my phone. Okay, good. All right, so Mitchell, as a new member, what interested me the most about Linchpin was the optional accessories, as I felt this all-roundedness was missing from previous programming. What's the best way to approach the optional accessory work and help build skills and capacity? Okay, so Mitchell, if you haven't already, make sure you watch every Monday. I put a daily video in the private track discussing the workout every single day. But every Monday there's another video that I attach entitled New to Linchpin, Watch This First. So if you haven't, go to a Monday and watch that video. It's full of mission critical information and data. But with regards to the accessory work, as we say, it's optional accessory work, and I truly mean that it really is optional. You don't need to do it to get fit. You could never do an accessory piece for the rest of your life and be okay. But if you do want to work it in, it's wonderful. It's great. It's intelligently laid out. It's a great way that maybe if you've hit a plateau to bust through something, or if you really are aware of an area that you need to give a little bit of more love and attention to, when that sort of work comes up in the optional accessory work, that might be a great thing for you to embrace. But you want to make sure, since more is not better, that you're not doing too much. Because if the accessory work, if you're not ready for it, because it is a dose, and then that starts to take away from the intensity that you can bring to the daily workout, then we're not doing ourselves any favors. So what I would recommend, if you're interested in playing with the optional accessory work, do it after the workout so the workout itself gets your best effort. And then scale and modify the optional accessory work. Do half the number of rounds, do half the number of reps, cut down the loading. Don't do it every day, do it twice a week, scaled and reduced, and see how that treats your body. Do you feel good? Do you feel too tired? Whatever it happens to be. Feel good? Go to 3 days a week, still scaled and modified. Feeling good? Great. Maybe keep the 3 days a week and bump up the reps and loading to get closer to what's actually written there, and play this small incremental game and find that sweet spot for yourself. That would be my recommendation. Joshua G. Where does the concept of building an aerobic base with long, slow distance Zone 2 cardio fit into CrossFit? And if useful, how would one incorporate this on top of Linchpin programming? So we build an aerobic base through many things that we do in the training that are longer days, lower intensity. And the thing about building an aerobic base is that it's usually modal specific, meaning if you're just going out there and running long, slow distance, that has benefit. And anyone who follows Linchpin knows that I'm actually one of the people out there who's a fan of running. But it's modal specific. So you can build an aerobic base running that doesn't translate to an aerobic base on a rower, and doesn't translate to an aerobic base on a bike, and doesn't translate to an aerobic base in a mixed modality workout that has running, kettlebell swings, and pull-ups in it. So that's why we have to expose ourselves to all these different deals. But if you want to add 1 or 2 long runs a week to the sessions and it treats your body well, you certainly can do that. The bigger question would be, even though Zone 2 cardio has benefits, and it's interesting, just things get in vogue for whatever particular reason. Social media, in whatever, something's just hot and buzzwordy for 3 months or so, and then something else is, and something else is. I mean, Zone 2 cardio, like it's somehow it's latched onto people, and with reason, it's there. But the question is, if this didn't just get so much media attention recently, would you be like assessing yourself on as a human being on planet Earth and what you have to do each day with your body, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what, man, my long aerobic base is really holding me back? Maybe, but I tend to think you wouldn't if it wasn't just thrown in your face as frequently as the algorithm is putting in front of people's face. But to be fair, if a true and honest assessment is that yes, this would actually benefit where you are in your fitness journey, and this happens to be the piece that you really feel is holding you back, by all means, you can layer in, 1 or 2 longer days a week into the training protocol. But for most people, I think their real world fitness is covered more than adequately, by just intelligently laid out mixed modality, short, medium, and long training would be my 2 cents on that. Okay. A few ones from the squads feature. Mike M. For farmer's carries, I have a 50-pound dumbbell and a 70-pound kettlebell. I don't know, do you have one 50-pound dumbbell or a pair? I'm reading that as just, 50s, you put an S next to it. Okay, so you have a pair of 50s and a 70-pound kettlebell. I can load up a bar, and I have in the past, but that feels awkward for farmer's carries. Agreed. How do you go heavier on these days? Do you go further? Do I suck up and load a bar and walk awkwardly, double up in one hand? So, yeah, the bar is awkward. I agree with you on that. And depending upon financial situations, yeah, it'd be great to get something heavier if you so desire. But if not, what you could also do is an uneven carry. So you could have a 50-pound dumbbell in one hand, your 70-pound kettlebell in the other hand, walk to your turnaround point, switch hands, and walk back. So you could absolutely do that, and that would actually be really cool and have some great variance right there. But then the easy answer to your question is, if you don't have the ability to increase loading, let's just say you're stuck with those weights that you're stuck with, then yes, your other best option is to increase the volume, meaning go ahead and walk further, and that would serve you well. Corey W. Back squat, front squat, or overhead squat, which do you think is the most functional movement and why? The most functional? I'm I'm not really sure the answer to the question. Luckily I don't have to answer it. It's one of those questions where there's not a great answer. Back squats, they're all phenomenal for their own right. Back squats phenomenal because you're going to get the most loading on your skeletal system and musculature. That's fantastic. Front squats, great because you're going to get the second most loading and it forces a bit more of an upright torso, and you have to have the added flexibility of the front rack position. The front squat's a great option, and it has transferability to other things like receiving a clean, push press thrusters, things of that nature. And the overhead squat is going to be the least amount of loading, but is almost the greatest test of your flexibility, coordination, accuracy, agility, and balance, but the loading is going to be anywhere near what it could be on the other two lifts. So coordination, accuracy, agility, balance, flexibility, that has tremendous value. Heavy loading in your body has tremendous value. Both, all go below parallel. So luckily we don't need to make that decision, but they're all great for different reasons. Let's see. Hector M. If you were crazy enough and had to go back to BUDS, which is SEAL school, by the way, basic underwater demolition SEAL training, and assuming your shoulder and hips are okay, how do you think you would do performance-wise? Just curious in your thoughts. Take care and see you at the Rogue Invitational. Oh, cool. Hector, see you at Rogue. Oh, but I had a nightmare a while ago that I had to go back to BUDS. How do I think I would do? I'm overall how crazy is this? I am way fitter at 48 years old, working out about 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week, an hour on heavy days, than I was at 21 years old going through BUDS. That's God's honest truth right there. Way fitter right now, way more well-rounded. Now, there are some things that I was better at back then because I was more of a specialist. BUDS, you want to get through BUDS? Swimming and running is your world, as well as calisthenics. So I was a better runner back then because that was my mission critical focus, that if I wasn't a great runner, you're not going to survive BUDS. So if I was to go back, I'd have to get in the pool a bit more. A lot of swimming is just technique, quite frankly. You've got the baseline work capacity to swim. You just need to make sure your technique is efficient. So polish up the technique again. Stretch out the runs, get the running back there. But truth be told, it's just whether or not you want to be there. Not going to make this a long thing about BUDS. If you want to be there on graduation day, then you will be there on graduation day. I saw plenty of ferociously fit animals quit because they didn't have it between the ears, and plenty of people who were nowhere near as fit as those other individuals but were so mentally tough you'd have to kill them. They wouldn't quit, and they were there on graduation day, and they just were grinders every day. And so that sort of training, it's just, do you want it? Do you want to be there on graduation day, and are you willing to suck up all the pain and misery? Yeah, it's helpful to be a fast runner. It's helpful to be a fast swimmer. It's helpful to be great at body weight movements. That's all great. But nothing is more important than mental toughness to make it to the end of training. Okay, let's see. Evangelos. Hello, Coach. I recently started listening to Dr. Andrew Huberman podcast. He has a science-based fitness protocol that would be interesting to check out as a reference for programming. I wouldn't expect to see a shift towards weightlifting, as he suggests, but I believe he shares relevant, interesting information. Would you consider taking a peek? I have listened to a lot of Andrew Huberman's stuff. Heard him on many different podcasts as well. The truth will set you free, right? I've never met the guy. I'm sure he's a wonderful human being. This is not. He's got academic credentials that I don't have. Exactly, which people find very intoxicating. He knows words that I don't know. I have apps, and I've never listened to one of his shows and been like, man, that's good. We need to start doing something differently. Never. And I also believe that if Dr. Andrew Huberman allowed me to, I could make him far fitter, faster, and stronger than he currently is. And I also think that almost any 10-year affiliate owner could do that as well. because that's what we do for a full-time living, and it's not what he does for a full-time living. So, yeah, I think I could greatly improve his overall strength and conditioning. All right, Matthew A. Hey Pat, first of all, I want to say thanks for the awesome programming. I've been following Linchpin on Instagram for some time and finally joined the private track. I've noticed a lot of other OG CrossFitters, echoing the message of consistency, volume, intensity. Would you have some on the podcast? Thanks again. Yeah, we have had some on before, but I can make a note of that. Let's see, Mike M. One more question for farmers. Oh, that's the Farmers Carries question. Sorry. All right, 2 more, and then I'm actually going to be able to have got through every question, which would be fantastic. Joseph T. The sequence of multi-move. Okay, so basically what Joseph T is asking here, and must be new to CrossFit, is you've got a workout like Murph that begins and ends with a 1 mile run, and in the middle of Murph, there's 100 pull-ups, 150 push-ups, and 300 air squats. Did I get that right? No. It's basically 20 rounds of Cindy. 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats. And you can break up that work, into like 20 rounds of Cindy, get it done, and then finish with the 1 mile run. He's curious, does that apply to other workouts, like a 21-15-9 workout? Do you have to do all the 21 before you get to the 15, or do you have the freedom to break it up as is? So, if you are new to CrossFit, Murph is an interesting workout. It allows you to do that. And then most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, the workout as it's written, you follow it in the sequence that it's written. So if we're talking about something like Fran, 21-15-9 thrusters and pull-ups, that means the workout is 21 thrusters, 21 pull-ups, 15 thrusters, 15 pull-ups, 9 thrusters, 9 pull-ups. And you have to stay with that written sequence. Now that doesn't mean that it needs to be unbroken. That 21 thrusters might be 3 sets of 7 to get you there. Same with the pull-ups and all that good stuff. And then that's why if somebody is actually laying out the programming well, they're going to expose you to days like that. They're going to expose you to days that have a higher number of rounds with a smaller number of repetitions to keep the athlete moving. They're going to expose you to chippers and everything in between to hit you with that variance and make you well-rounded so that you get that exposure. But to answer your question, yes, you do generally complete each set before moving on to the next set if it's a 21-15-9 workout. Let's see. And final question, also from Joseph T. And this is a popular one. If you're recording dumbbell weights, for example, if you're doing farmer's carries or if you're doing Bulgarian split squats, if you're doing something that has a dumbbell in each hand, let's say you have a 50-pound dumbbell in each hand, how do you record that in BTWB? Do you record the total weight of both dumbbells, which would be 100 pounds, or do you record it as just 50 pounds, a single dumbbell? There is no hard and fast rule. You can record it either way that you want, as long as you're consistent and you know which way you're recording it. You can leave a little note in the notes section. Then you'll have that data to use in the future moving forward. If you record it different every time, then you're in trouble with regards to having useful data. I will say that what most people do is they will record the weight of a single dumbbell, and they'll understand that they used a pair. So if it's dumbbell thrusters, and you did death by dumbbell thrusters, you used a pair of 50-pound dumbbells, you got to the round of 12, and you're going to note the loading, you would write 50 in there for the dumbbells, realizing that you didn't just use one dumbbell for the dumbbell thrusters, and that it was actually a pair. So, okay, we did it. We made it through all the questions. Not bad. About 35 minutes, I think. It could be a PR. All right, I've still got a little bit of coffee in my cup, which is great. I have about 10 minutes before I gotta get 3 kids up and moving to school and get them fed and all that good stuff. So real life is just kicking off. It's a rest day. Enjoy it, and we'll talk again later.